All right. We are back at the Grit Won't Quit podcast today. We are with a special guest and another person who brought a book in for me. We have Chris DeMaio, who is a super host for Airbnbs. Good morning, Chris. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks for dropping off the book ahead of time so I could preview it. So you went from a corporate America guy working at a Fortune 20 company for 28 years to deciding that you're going to now run Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. I mean, that's great for the person who's thinking about leaving corporate America, leaving the job, the big job with the security and the great benefits to start something on their own and you're young enough where you could take advantage of it.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely a scary move. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that most people know for a while before actually pulling the trigger and doing it. And for me, I had been had a great career. I started when I was 18 years old, freshman in college. Had a great experience moving around a ton. Had a master class in leadership from a lot of my mentors. Mm-hmm. It was really a great run, but I definitely was feeling like that wasn't going to be it. Like, mm-hmm. that wasn't the last chapter.
You needed a second act.
There was something, and I didn't know what that next act was going to be. But 10 years ago, I bought my first investment property. It was a condo on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And we started renting it out. And the first year, we had a realtor kind of helping us out and taking a decent chunk of it. And then I realized, like, I could do this. Like, this isn't that hard. I can do this. Mm-hmm. And I started building my processes, systems on figuring this out. And for 10 years, while I was still at Verizon, I was managing this property remotely, mm-hmm. Going up there a few times a year. And I really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people that know me knew that when I started talking about that and started talking about my Airbnb journey, they saw me light up.
You have a smile on your face as he's talking about it. And when you first started talking about your other job, you didn't have a smile on your face.
No, but it's funny because like 10, 15 years ago, I did have that smile there. So I think people were even starting to notice that shift in that
smile wasn't there.
Notice. Yeah.
So you seem like energized when you talk about like these, managing these properties. And now you have the Cape Cod, you work in corporate, you decide it's the time to jump.
Yeah, I had decided, like, there were a number of things that, and I think this is super common when you're at a company for a long time. The company evolves, leadership changes, things are starting to be handled differently than you kind of grew up handling them in the company, and you start to feel like maybe there's this detachment a bit from what I learned.
Though.
Yeah, and it's natural.
And executives come and go. Ivan and Larry.
Super common, and by the way, I think it's natural, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because there's going to be new talent that comes in that's probably more aligned with the way that the company is going to be headed, mm-hmm. and I think it's all part of the circle of life in corporate. So for me, I was at that point where I was like, all right, I didn't know what for sure I wanted to do next, but mm-hmm. I knew there was something different. I knew I didn't want to leave there to go into another corporate job.
And after 28 years in corporate, I mean, you did your time. Yeah. But also to go to another corporation, I think is hard at that point. And I think there's a lot of guys that are in that mid to late 40s into their 50s where they want to do something else, but like it's not corporate, and I think they want to find that opportunity. So I think this is an interesting topic. I was just talking to one of the girls on my staff the other day about people that want to leave corporate and go out on their own and what they do and like how we target them to help them with our marketing services, because a lot of them come from a corporate background where you had a marketing department where you just call over to another department and it gets done for you. Yeah. So this is a different world for you.
For sure. And that's been one of the biggest learnings for me in starting my own business, because you always say, like, when you're in a corporate environment, well, if I ran the world, if I did this, it would be different. Well, now is my chance to do that.
Shine.
And then I look around and there's no team, there's no budget, there's no fancy tools that come from the IT department, and so I'm having to figure out what that is. For sure.
And then when the printer breaks,
I'm the guy standing at the Apple store now. So it's one of those things where like that was a big transition and a big learning from me, coming from a very strong talent pool, strong funding type of environment to now any dollar I spend is a dollar less that I get. Yeah. So it better be a good investment.
You know, I think that sometimes at a corporation, you're like, it's in the budget, so you just use it. Whereas now it's like the budget, if it goes down by one, that's one out of the pocket.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a big shift.
But also that you have to think about how these big corporations do it is they've invested over time, and now the rewards are there. So as you had one house, it hurts when you take out that little expense. But as you get some economies of scale. You need a computer, and you have one house. Well, it hurts that one budget, that one line item. But if you have 5 houses, 10 houses, it doesn't hurt as much. It's spread across.
Exactly. And you know, for me, it was I was super fortunate to have the corporate career that I had, not just from the learnings and all that, but from a financial stability perspective. Like, although it's always a risk to start your own business, it's a big difference when you're starting your own business after coming in, after having that kind of career. I was able to plan for that versus like never having that and just starting my own business and not sure how the mortgage is getting paid. Like I wasn't in that situation, and it allowed me to have that kind of safety net to have my plan to execute.
And again, when you plan better and you're funded, or better funded, I think it's easier. I think where many people fail is they're undercapitalized and the runway is too short. They might have had a great idea, they might still have a great idea, but if the runway is too short, then you start making bad decisions. You make decisions based on today's cash versus the long-term outcome of what's
well. That was actually a big part of why I loved this business, because for me, when I was managing my own Airbnbs, well, obviously there's a capital investment. I'm buying a property, all of that stuff. But in pivoting a bit to this co-hosting business where I'm actually managing other people's homes, I don't have overhead. I'm not buying the house. So for me, I earn a percentage of what we make in renting that house. My overhead is tools, a couple of tools that I use, and maybe, an employee here or there to help out. But I'm not buying the house. I'm not buying the fleet of cars. I'm not buying so for me, it was a super low risk. If it didn't work, it didn't work. And I'm not sitting there with a mortgage and a property that I have to worry about. So that helped me kind of get my head into that place.
So let's kind of dig a little deeper into that. So you start out with the Cape Cod place, you're managing it, you realize this is, you're energized, you like it, and now you're going to start doing more. Now so how did you find other people that were needed you? Because again, I think a lot of people buy investment properties think it's the most simple thing in the world, and that's anything but the case.
Yeah.
But so now you decide, all right, well, I'm going to start helping others. How do they start finding you? And then how do you guys start working together?
So it's funny because throughout the 10 years, I would always get people reaching out wanting advice or just trying to get some of my learnings. And I'm very free with information. I love to talk about the topic. I love to tell people about my journey. I love to help them on theirs. And I just started giving information. And the more I was doing that over the years, I'm like, I think some of these people want information, but I think some of these people don't want to deal with this at all. This is not like they don't have the passion that I have for this. They want the return,
the economic investment of it.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's why they bought a second house.
Yeah, we do that all the time, right? We hire people to do things that we don't want to or don't have the time to do all the time. Sure. So for me, I started thinking like, is this more of an advisory type business where I could be an advisor to people, or is this a business where I could help to expand and actually do the work? I knew I couldn't do that while I was still working at Verizon. I knew I could do the advisory stuff. Sure, I could always give people advice, but I couldn't do the actual management. I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that successfully. So when I was leaving Verizon and I started kind of going through that corporate deprogramming process after leaving, I really started to focus on, well, what do I like? And I kept coming back to the hosting. And I think for me, it's, I never looked at it through the financial lens first. And of course, the financial part of it is important from an owner perspective, from my perspective. But if that's the lens that you're trying to host through, you're going to fail at this game. Like for me, one of the things I learned from corporate was that of customer experience and how important the customer experience in this business, the guest experience is. It's everything.
Sure.
So you could be really good at the guest experience and still make a lot of money. They're not mutually exclusive. And sometimes people lean in with the, I want to make money. And yeah, if it's good for the guest experience, great. But if it's not, it's not. I still need to, it's still a business. And I take it the complete opposite. To me, like, for me, I've always learned that, brand is business, business is brand, right? And for me, this was all about the experience equals good business equals profits, and that's it. So if we focused on the experience, we'll never go wrong if you focus on the guest experience.
If you focus on it and you have customers, money will follow.
That's it. That's it. And so for me, I started to talk to people. People started seeing that I had the passion for it. And then when I decided I was going to do this full boat, go all in on it, I started going to local networking events, networking breakfasts, happy hours, just trying to meet people because this is definitely a bit of a word of mouth. People, especially something like this, people want to work with someone they know, someone they trust, get a referral from someone that they know. So I started meeting some great people in the at the networking events. And, realtors are great partners of mine because many realtors don't want to do this side of the business. They're really great at buying, selling. The rental part of it comes with its own host of unique challenges that take up a lot of time that they don't want to have to put into it.
The great thing is, though, if realtors that are focused on investors, like they have a nice in to say, and I have Chris that will help you.
For sure.
So it's kind of like a slam dunk.
Yeah. I mean, I've become an unofficial part of so many of their teams. And some people in the beginning were thinking, well, aren't realtors like your competitor? And not at all. I've presented to the Realtor Association for Monmouth and Ocean counties. I've talked about the state of Airbnbs and shared a lot of great information on where the industry is going for short-term rentals, what challenges we have. And so it's been a great way to get referrals and to build partnerships off of, for sure.
That's awesome. Now, when you think about how you do Airbnbs differently, because again, you're not a super host, you're not helping other people that you don't own the home. So what do you, and you said customer experience and the brand. So like, what are some of the protocols and processes that you put in place? Because you must do something to make that happen. Yeah.
Look, I believe for me hosting, I never want the guest to know that I'm not the owner of the house. Look, of course, if they ask me, I'm not going to lie, but they should not feel a watered down version of me that my guests would feel from the property that I manage. So everything I do for my property, I do for these, and I'll even say I do probably more for the properties that I don't own, just to really make sure that everyone's in a good place. Yeah. And look, I have two customers. I have the guests who are actually paying, and then I have the owners. And it's not always easy to make both of those parties happy.
The owner doesn't want to pay for anything extra, and the guest needs stuff. And you're thinking about the long-term brand of this.
Exactly. And I'm looking at it from my perspective also as a super host on Airbnb. Even on the properties that I don't own, that impacts my rating as well. Not in the same way as the ones I own, but it does impact my rating. So I need to make a decision as a business what investments I want to make. Maybe I do something for a guest that I don't charge the owner back for because it's the right thing to do. It's the right experience I want to create. And then I want that to come back to my business. So, it's interesting. I also had to kind of come up with what are the things that I would be willing to give on in some of these properties. So I have my checklists. I know what we should have in every property. I know the level of quality we need to deliver in terms of like products, in terms of furniture, all of that fun stuff. But there are things that I would do in my property that I could understand if an owner doesn't want to do. And I know what impact it will have, if any. I know what things I can give on versus the things like this is a non-negotiable. This either needs to be in the house or I'm not your guy. And I rarely ever have owners that that pushback. Sometimes.
At that point, I feel like the owner wants to do business with you and wants to take this burden off themselves. So if it's something that's attainable, it's easy to do, just give it to Chris because everybody's going to be happier in the end.
Well, and that's who I want to work with. I want to work with people that see the value that I bring and that look, I don't earn extra money if you buy this bowl versus this bowl. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm just giving you my expert opinion on you're going to replace that bowl 4 times a year.
Yep.
And this bowl you're going to have for 5 years. So you just what do you want to do?
Yeah.
So
you almost have to say this is the return on investment.
Yeah.
So that because again, if they're thinking from a fiscal point of view, this, we're going to have a return here. This is beneficial.
And an idea, I work with a lot of different types of homeowners. There are your pure investors that there's no emotional attachment to the home at all. They don't want anything to do with this process. Sometimes they want me to just send them a check at the end of the month. Versus me billing for my services. And then you have the opposite extreme, which is an owner that has an emotional attachment to the home. They want to keep every little piece in the home, even though it shouldn't be there. So I have to handle those owners a little differently.
And now, do you feel that having this background from a corporate experience gave you great insights for starting and running this business?
Yeah. I mean, I will say all day, every day. And it's funny because I have a lot of people, especially from my old company, that will reach out after they're leaving for advice. Cause I'm a pretty transparent person. I put the good and the bad out on social media. I want people to see that this is not a walk in the park.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into this. There are days when, imposter syndrome kind of comes in and you feel like you were only good when you were at that company and you start questioning yourself and what you did. And so I have a lot of people that reach out to me and want my advice on those things. And what I've noticed for me is that I had a master class in running a business. I was lucky enough that when I started working at Verizon, it was a smaller regional phone company. And over the course of my career, we became this global, huge company. So I feel like I worked for a small business to start. And then I was there as we grew it to what it was. So that was a huge learning for me.
Things over the years.
But the bigger lesson for me when I left was, what did I want to leave behind? Because there were a lot of things that you pick up in corporate America that are just pure survival tactics of being in environments that are not always the best.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, those things were so intertwined that I had to really pull those apart. There was lots of great things like my project management and my planning and all of that stuff, but it was all interwoven with me being super aggressive about getting updates from people. So I had to figure out
loosen up some of the things. And
I've had people whoa, you just gave that to me 2 hours ago. And I'm yeah, where is it? Come on. So I had to I've been working on that journey of separating what I wanted to leave behind, but tons and tons that prepared me to do it.
That's great. So now I know that you could do a lot of this remotely, and technology has been a friend of yours.
Huge.
What's the next step? Where does it go? From a scaling perspective, are you happy where you are? Are you looking to grow? I mean, you're young enough and you can, you have a wealth of background. So where do you go from here?
Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing when I started this that I kept having to remind myself, because again, when you come from corporate, you're busy all the time, right? Sure. And you're running, it's a fire drill every day. And part of the reason why I left is because I didn't want that life anymore.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want a fully retired shuffleboard life, right? Yeah. So
do you play pickleball?
How do I do.
I love pickleball.
I do. It's a lot of fun. I can't say I'm good, but I do play. I wanted something in between.
Sure.
So for me, the challenge is knowing or recognizing when I'm not having fun anymore.
Sure.
And I'm still having a lot of fun. I've had to weed through some of my clients. I'm not going to lie. When I was in corporate, you have to work with everyone and you have to deal with everyone.
Not anymore.
I don't have to anymore. And if I feel like we're not a fit, if I feel like my expertise is questioned at every turn, then I'm not going to work with you. And it's just, and it's not, no. And I want to work with people that see the value that I bring and that want to work with me, that take my advice and like want me to, because they know I want them to be successful. So, for me, like going down in a couple of numbers, like hurt, like I thought that was like I was missing a KPI. So I had to really kind of rethink.
That thinking.
But for me, I think we still have room to grow before I get to that point of being like I'm not enjoying this anymore. I'm still loving it. I still love. I do all the guest communication myself. So every single message that goes back and forth with a guest comes through me. I don't delegate that out, because that to me is where I find the most joy, is talking to people, understanding why are you visiting this area? What are you hoping to get out of it? What recommendations can I give you? Like, I genuinely am invested in making sure that they have a great time. They're paying a lot of money, and I want to make sure they have a great time. So for me, if I get to a point where I'm so busy and I'm out doing like business development all the time and I don't have any time to actually be like close to the guest and do that, then it's lost it for me. So for me, the ideal would be to grow this to the point where I feel like I'm still having fun. And then if it wants to grow beyond that, bringing somebody that I can train and that can set up a business just like this to start it on their own.
Got it. That's awesome. I think that's the best way to go about it. I think it's funny, you said about some of the clients. People say to me all the time, well, what's the ideal wingman client look like? And I always say a company that's looking to grow, like a company that's like, when people say to me, oh, I got 3 years till retirement, just do the basics. It's never a good fit, because I want to help you grow. I want to help your business move forward. I want you to think about technology. Yeah. And when people say, so, I have that similar, and again, coming from a corporate background, I did a few years at Verizon, and before that I did a 5 years at Cablevision. So I'm from that KPI and, the metrics, and I'm still metrics based, and I still want to, us to grow and do the right thing. But sometimes you got to look at it and say, is that client the right client? Yeah. And, it's better. I think it's better. If a client's not happy, let them go. Yeah. I don't enforce any contracts, because, again, if you're not happy, you're only going to make my team miserable in the process, and myself. And there's probably somebody else out there that will be a great fit for what they want and what they need. I'm not a very transactional. I like to be in with the owner. I want to know what they want to achieve, and I want to figure that out. And if it's just like no, I want you to do these 4 transactions over and over again for the next 6 months, I could do it, sure. But like, am I going to get anything out of it? Not really. Are you going to feel good about me? There's somebody else that would be happy to do that. I agree with you. We come from the same school of thought on that, because like there's just a lot of times where you look at it and you're like, it's probably someone better for the job. Yeah, that's an interesting philosophy and way to go about it. And I think what you're doing is awesome. Like, so you have how many total now?
Yeah, so we've got 12 properties that we're managing.
All in Monmouth County?
So Monmouth, Ocean, and I do have 2 properties up in Cape Cod as well that we manage fully remotely. Yep. I mean, I have a team on the ground that I'm able to activate, and I go up a few times a year. But yeah, most of them are Monmouth and Ocean County. I was trying to keep it all in the beginning, all like close Monmouth County, and then I started getting referrals in Wildwood. So now I have 3 properties in Wildwood that I manage.
So that's Atlantic County, right?
Yeah. So it's Cape May. Okay. And so all of a sudden it's grown, and look, I don't mind getting in the car for an hour and a half.
And you do something fun on the way back, on the way there, and that's part of the not like where you change that transition.
Yeah,
from
you become overscheduled. Now I'm not overscheduled. I can definitely go and take a drive for a day and go and meet folks. So
I love what you're doing. This is awesome. So as we wrap up today, let people know where they can find you online, your website, your socials, and the book, and where they could find the book, and hopefully I can get a signed copy of this book before you leave today. For sure. So my company is CarefreeNb Hosting. So we're at CarefreeNbHosting.com. All the information on the services we provide, the houses that we host are all on the website.
And then, the book is called Accidental Superhost. It came out this summer, and it's really a combination of my corporate story and how I kind of transitioned into starting my own business, as well as a big chunk of the book is things you want to be thinking about if you do want to get into the Airbnb world. Some tips and tricks and things that I think will be super helpful for anyone looking to do that. So the book, you could go to accidentalsuperhostbook.com. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on Kindle if you're more of a electronic reader. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I never really thought I was going to go be an author, but now I'm enjoying that part of the journey also.
You're going to be doing book tours soon.
Yeah, I'm going to be actually on October 12th, the Belmar Book Fair.
Oh, cool.
I will have a table at the Belmar Book Fair, so if you're local and you want to come by October 12th, we'll be at the pavilion.
Sounds great. Well, Chris, thanks again for coming on today, and I'll have you autograph this book for me before you leave today, and go from there. Thanks again.
Thanks, Tom.